Good morning, everyone. Okay, so it was going and then it kind of stopped a little bit, so it made me a little nervous.
Well, Lauren, after getting cut off early last week, I can see why. So, to any of you that thought I was in the middle of a sentence when we disappeared, it was both of our shots that we got cut off early. So, what we found out is that another associate was using the software and they will have a presentation today. So, we're going to end a little bit early. But, Lauren, do you remember Bugs Bunny when he would be dancing on the stage and they would throw a hook and take him off? Or, I mean, it was Elmer Fudge or something. Somebody could tell us in the chat. Well, that's how I felt. All of a sudden, I was on the stage and I was at it, and the hook came around the neck, and I got dragged off the stage. So that's what was last week.
And I was in the back going crazy, thinking that it was me, and it's like I didn't touch anything. Oh my goodness, Lori, that is not going to happen again. I'm excited though for today's show. I know you can see my slides, correct?
I sure can.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I know the numbers are still fluctuating, so as you all come in, go ahead and, take a listen to this quick intro, but Lori has got some fun things in store for us today, so here we go. Good morning again. My name is Lauren Simpson. I'm with the SBDC, or the Small Business Development Center. We are a national program with over 1,000 locations across the country, and we offer no-cost services to local small businesses. Now, our services are at no cost to you because your tax dollars have already taken care of all of our fees. Why wouldn't you want to participate in something that is free and extremely valuable? So for the Los Angeles network, which is the network that I represent, we serve the Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, and Ventura counties. Now, if you take a look at the screen in front of you, you'll be able to see our physical center locations. You'll see that we are as far out as Camarillo and Santa Clarita. Then we pass over Pasadena, all the way over to Laverne. We are throughout Los Angeles, the South Bay, all the way down into Long Beach. So here's the deeper dive into what it is that we do and what we offer. We offer no-cost business advising. And so you're able to sit one-on-one with one of our business advisors via Zoom or a phone call. Totally up to you. For now, we are not accepting in-person appointments, but again, I think Zoom is the new in-person, right? You'll have a chance to sit with one of our business experts. And so they have expertise in various fields, from marketing to business planning if you're just starting out, or if you're looking to adapt your business or grow your business. We have people who are versed in loans and grants. Honestly, you name it, we've got it. And then you might also be able to sit with our guru of all numbers, Miss Lori Williams. And then we also offer virtual trainings. And those are just comprehensive workshops to help you, again, adapt and grow, or just begin. So finally, if you are interested in our services, please know that we are here to help you, and we're excited to hear from you. You may give us a call at 866-588-7232, or you can go online, smallbizla.org/new client. Now, if you've been lucky enough to reach us and you're outside of our network, don't fret. You can still go to americassbdc.org/find your SBDC. So how about I stop my screen share? Quick housekeeping, Lori. Let's be sure that everyone puts all their questions into the Q&A, and then check the chat out for any kind of useful links and information that Lori would like to share with you. And Lori, I will hand it over to you. Good morning again.
Good morning, Lauren. In fact, I was talking to a new client the other day that said that they watch the show. If they don't come on live, they get every single one on YouTube. We're reaching out, and people we don't even know are seeing it. So it's awesome. And as a reminder, if anybody wants to get in touch with me, please do through Lauren. She's going to put her email address in the chat. I followed up with everybody who's contacted me. If you want an appointment with me, let me know. If you haven't heard back from me, email Lauren again. I'm not aware of it. Okay. So Lauren, Lauren's going to put a whole bunch of things into the chat. I just have pretty much a blank screen on this because the copy around it is so long. I just wanted you to be able to know what it is, and then Lauren's going to put the links. So two things. We're going to stay on the concept of tax time for a little bit because April 17th is right around the corner. So remember that this is when your personal taxes, as well as those of you who have an LLC, this is when your taxes will be due. If you had an S Corp or a corporation, they would have been due in March. It's also when you have to make estimated tax payments for 2023 if you need to. I'm going to probably get in next week how that rule works because we got short time today, so I want to not expand on it today. But the link that's going to go into the chat is going to talk about when you make estimated tax payments, who has to. It's a pretty long, involved newsletter from the IRS that's very informative. Now, also, if you do not have your taxes complete or will not by April 17th, I've talked to several people that do not, remember to file an extension. Please know this. This is something I was not aware of until I went through my EA training, and that is the penalties for not filing the return are higher than the penalties for not paying. And if you don't file on time, the 7-year limit on them going after you is removed. So at the least, you want to file on time. Now, for some of the people I've talked to, you haven't even started on their taxes. You want to get an extension document filed. Now, for those of you who don't have an accountant, don't have somebody to help you with that file of the extension, I included a link. Lauren's going to put that in the chat to the IRS. It's a video on how to file the extension. You can file it online, not very challenging at all, but make sure you do at least one of the two, either file by the due date or file an extension. And please note that even if you file an extension, that doesn't mean your taxes are not due by the deadline of April 17th. They are still due at that time period. Okay, enough about taxes. If anybody needs more information, shout out to Lauren and I can contact you and get you some more information. If you have filed or are about to file and you want to know where your refund is, this is how you can check the status of it. My upcoming financial series is right around the corner with the first session tomorrow. Lauren will put the links there as well. You can take them in any order, although session 2 and session 3 complement each other. In session 2 and session 3, we go through managerial accounting, where I use an Excel document and show you what numbers you need to at least be aware of in order to have financial control of the company. As far as shows coming up, next week we got Simara coming on. She's the founder and CEO of Solve It HR. She's been on the show, I think, 2 times. Every time she's on the show, the amount of questions extend beyond our time. So she's one of those that I always invite back. There's a couple updates she's going to be talking about. Plus, I want to bring up some things that I've seen clients experience as far as some letters from EDD and want to alert everybody to that. And we're going to talk again about AB5 and if you're trying to hire somebody as an independent contractor, what you need to be aware of. So a whole packed-filled show again. Then the week after, another favorite, Deborah Darris, our social media goddess, will come up and give us an update. What's happening in the social media world? What do we need to know? Okay, and my third one is Clarissa Wilson. She was a new guest. I think it's been a month ago. She is the QuickBooks expert that came on to talk about what you need to know about QuickBooks Online. We compared desktop. We talked about what you need to know when you're syncing your data, why reports are wrong, how to check them. Once again, overwhelming amount of questions and response. So I've asked her to come back on to continue the discussion. And then May, we've got a huge lineup as well, but these are the next 3 shows coming up. You won't want to miss them. They're going to be awesome. Now, when we talk about today's show, we got another incredible guest. So the Southern California Bartending School, it's located in Anaheim, California. It is a full-scale, state-certified, approved professional bartending certification program. The company has an impressive 5-star rating on Yelp with over 305 reviews. That's remarkable to me. During her entrepreneurial journey, Laura Milham, the founder of the company, has experienced many twists and turns. She's going to share with us today what she learned from marketing the business to hiring employees and more. Laura, welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you here today.
Thank you, Lori. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I see we've got a bunch of people here. That's awesome.
We do. We get the numbers. I have to tell you, Laura, every time I read about the California bartending, we're going back years in my life. So I first have to tell you this because it reminds me, when I was in my 20s, a friend of mine was a legal secretary. Now, to me, that was so esteemed. I would want to be saying I'm a legal secretary. Well, in the 20s, we like to party and go to bars. She loved going to the bars, And I'll never forget the one day she says, Lori, I'm quitting my job as a legal secretary and I'm going to bartending school, right? And I was like, oh my God, what a change. Do you know, and I have to end this with this, she was never happier. She's probably still bartending today. I mean, she went from drudgery, getting up to go to work every day, to loving her job. And I thought, well, that really gave me in my early years an understanding of the words, love what you do. So, Laura, when did you start? What was your inspiration of starting your company?
So I became a bartender in college. I was using it just as a means to pay my tuition, pay my rent, car payment, all that. I bartended my way through graduate school. I am more of like a school nerd. So I was heavily focused on getting my graduate degree, becoming a professor. Bartending was a means to an end. So I was doing it to support myself. I ended up getting laid off during the recession in 2006, 2 years into my career as a professor. So at the time I was still bartending. It was kind of funny because I got my master's from Cal State Fullerton in sports psychology. That's what I was teaching. And I was also bartending in downtown Fullerton at the same time. So I would pray that none of my students came in, because then they'd have to face the harsh reality that bartenders actually make more than professors. It was doubling my income. So I held on to my bartending shifts while I was a professor. I actually got hired in Las Vegas to bartend once or twice a month. So I'd fly to Vegas, fly back, teach my classes. And then again, 2 years into my career, I got laid off. So I was kind of faced with a decision: go back to school for a doctorate and just kind of stack on more student loans, or figure it out. So I think the story of how my company evolved is a story of hard work, determination, and flexibility. I had to just go with the flow. So I knew how to teach, and I had become a really good bartender. Bartending schools do have a reputation, a stigma that you can't learn in a bartending school. A lot of people don't understand we have real bars. So you're actually practicing making the drinks. We just use food coloring and water, but it's like following any other recipe that you see online. We teach you the best recipes, and you're monitored. We do demonstrations. So that's kind of how the school evolved, was just me having to combine what I knew, teaching, bartending, and making it work so I could survive in Southern California. So about 13 years ago is when we first started. We've been at our current location for 10 years in Anaheim. And it's doing great. The meaning for me behind bartending, because I mentioned I'm more about, I'm a business advisor now. This is really what I enjoy doing. Don't get me wrong, I have stories on stories about bartending and crazy stuff and fun stuff, but for me, it was more a means to an end. And I think what really drives me to have a really good school is to allow my students an opportunity to have a part-time job that will afford them enough money to keep up with inflation and the cost of living in Southern California, whether you're a student or you have a family. That's the meaning for me, is you actually make a ton of money bartending and you don't have to work full-time. You can, but I love that it allows people more freedom and less stress. So that's kind of what drives me.
So many things I can unpack in that, but one of the things that stood out to me right away is when you were saying, what can I do? I teach, and I am a very good bartender. And so often what we tell entrepreneurs is figure out what you do, what you have a skill, and what's needed in the marketplace. And then, as you mentioned, bartending gives this ample opportunity for people to make extra money, be able to deal with the cost of California. So you really follow that entrepreneurial guidance that we tell people all the time. I think sometimes, I know I'm going a little bit off course on this, but I think sometimes people decide they want to be an entrepreneur and they try to fit themselves into something they think has a demand rather than going inside first and figuring out what is it that I have that is needed in the marketplace. Because when I had my company years ago in my 20s and we went through the first recession, I remember going, what do we do well? And I sat down and I would just put on my fingers and count, what do we do well? And then what can we sell in the marketplace? And I think that's the key to starting, is identifying that. So well spoken. I just wanted to point that out. Now, I don't know this, Laura. Is there like government regulations that you have to go through to? I don't even know. How does that work? Because, you know, that's always a big fear of anything that has to do with certification is scary to entrepreneurs. Can you just talk about that a bit?
Yeah, so that's actually kind of a fun question because previous to 2022, the answer was no. The state was not involved. The city, the county was not involved. Of course, there's the Alcohol Beverage Control Department, which oversees pretty much the licensing and regulations around, you know, serving and selling alcohol. They didn't touch bartender certification, bartending school. There is a bartending school who grabbed that acronym, which was brilliant. So they're the ABC Bartending School. There's a lot of misconceptions around if you need a license and what is a license, or is it a certificate, and is it backed by anything? So again, previous to last year, the answer was no. You just get a certification from our school and that's it. In 2022, the ABC decided to step in. So now they have what's called the Responsible Beverage Service Training Certification. It has more to do with like learning how to not overserve people, how to read signs of intoxication, what to do if people become intoxicated, a little bit of like the history of alcohol. And it's not a very long program. So we include it as part of our school. So you can get your RBS certification in coming to our school, and that's now mandated. So if you're going to go bartend anywhere, you have to have that certification.
I remember hearing about that just in the background. I always thought it had to do with the bars. I didn't realize it had to do with the bartenders as well. So that's very interesting. And you just have to stay on things. And, you know, from a certification government standpoint, I always like to remind people in our audience, when you come up against something like that, you just do the homework, you figure out what it is, you go the process and you get it. Don't see it as such a roadblock. A lot of times it scares people and it makes a roadblock where you said, no, it changed. We just went ahead. And then in your case, you were able to offer it, which probably creates another benefit to having the company.
Yeah, people were calling and asking, and I got with my instructors and I said, we got to do this because I think we're losing business. I don't know exactly which of my competitors are offering it because they're not advertising it. But we integrated it as soon as we could because it is mandated now, and it wasn't a big deal to sort of incorporate it with our program. So yeah, I was going to share too. So, you know, I actually live in Las Vegas. Just a little side note, as far as certification, Las Vegas, we have what's called a TAM card, a health card, a sheriff's card, and a union poor card. So I have all four as a backup, but to bartend in a city like Las Vegas, there's actually 4 required certifications, which is bananas, but the bartenders here make really good money.
Wow. You know, and I think this is something as we go forward, we just have to get more and more comfortable with, because I feel like we're getting more regulated than less. So no matter what you do, you can be selling, you know, dog sweaters at a farmer's market and you have sales tax and everything. So I think that part of being in business is understanding that you're going to have to integrate something with some kind of government organization at a point in time. And I really try to emphasize that because so many people people are afraid of it, but I say it's just part and parcel of being in business. Now, one of the things that I see with you're an on-site establishment. So whether we're talking about bartending or we're talking about many other companies, the concept is I've got a physical location. That means I've got rent I got to pay, and I got to bring people to my location. And I would see that in that, not only do you have a physical location, so people aren't going to drive from, over the place. They're going to have a limit on where they drive, but you also have a certain niche, somebody who wants to go to bartending school. So I would have to believe, especially at first, marketing could be a bit challenging. And marketing is one of those key topics that everybody wants to hear about. And what they love to hear, Laura, is not just what you're doing today, but if you could walk us back to those beginning days when you're like going, okay, anybody going to show up? How did you get started, and how did you see the marketing go over the years, ending with how in the world did you get 305 impressive Google? Okay, I know that's a lot, so I'm going to let
I'll
you
share my secrets.
So go through that whole thing, and I'm just going to let you run with it.
Sure. So I do not have a business background. I was one of the many entrepreneurs who sort of jumped out of the nest and figured out how to fly on my way down. I did know that I needed my business license and my fictitious business name statement, and I knew that I needed a location. So starting out, it was just me. I made a lot of mistakes. Probably the biggest mistake was I quit my job and just thought, I'm going to start making money. And of course, that was incredibly stressful and stupid. I would not advise anyone quit their job if they're starting a business. You do it after your 9 to 5, so you're stable. So I created a lot of extra pressure for myself. I think I got a lot of gray hairs, and I was teaching all the classes myself. So after a few years, it was a very slow start. I am going to share a piece of information that I don't think you know, Lori. I don't think Lauren knows, and it has to do with the SPDC. So this is actually a cool little piece of information. One of my first students was Pat Nye,
No,
the director of the SPDC. He has a little mobile Airstream bar trailer.
I knew that.
And he wanted to learn how to bartend. So yeah, about a decade ago, he was in my school learning how to bar, and I was teaching him. He has since become an incredible bartender.
Okay, so those in the audience, why I'm going, wow, Pat is at the very top. Okay, so here she had the top dog in her bartending school. That is hilarious. Keep going, Laura. I wanted to make sure.
Yeah, and I don't mean to like get sidetracked, but that reminds me. So I mean, Pat I refer to him as the wizard. You know who he is. You don't ever see him. You don't really get to hear him talk, but we all know he exists somewhere up there. But with that being said, I mean, there is that stigma, right, with bartending school. Pat came to our school. He learned a lot. I've worked at bars, one bar specifically in Huntington Beach, where the owner was like 24. And I overheard a conversation at the bar, and people were like, oh, yeah, no, Nico, no, he's just a bartender. Like he just does this. Like he doesn't, like he didn't go to college. He's just a bartender. He actually owned the bar. And I was like, it just made me think, like, you don't know who we are. I mean, I was in graduate school. One of my best friends was a bartender. She's a nurse practitioner. So we try to fight that stigma because, bartending is fun and you make a ton of money. So once I got to a point where I needed a little help with the classes, I hired 2 1099 instructors, bartenders, to help me. And then we did that for about 5 years. And then I'd say around the 7-year mark is where I was able to step back and fully staff the schedule I had 2 instructors. Of course, I'm very picky about my instructors. They have to have legitimate bartending jobs at well-known bars. So my instructors, they work at like Disneyland, for example. Another one was a manager at Portuguese Bend in Long Beach, which unfortunately just closed. Alex's Bar in Long Beach was just another famous bar. So I brought in some really sort of heavy hitter instructors that knew what they were doing, who I could trust to do a good job and to deliver a quality education. We are not here to blow smoke up your rear end. We want you to be good bartenders. So that's sort of our objective, is we just cram information down your throat as far as how to make the drinks, how to deal with customers, how to get better shifts, how to get better sales. Because if you get better sales, you make better tips and you get better shifts. And
Yeah.
it sort of creates job security. They're not going to fire or lay off a bartender who's ringing the highest sales. So we teach students about upselling, high top shelf alcohol with the drinks. So year 7 is when I was able to sort of let go of the reins and started doing more of the back end stuff. And that's actually also when I moved to Las Vegas. So I'm now up to 4 employees, 1099s, who are teaching the classes for me. And I do the enrollments. I answer the phone. I do emails, but I'm not there anymore. I go by the office every few months to water my plant and pick up my mail and any cash that students paid. And that's pretty much it. So it's sort of just working on its own now. And I'm involved enough to kind of oversee. But I have such a great team. And I think that's part of the success of the school.
Now, how did you start out with marketing? Was it a word of mouth? Do you know where you got most of the sales, and how did you get to where you are today with marketing?
That's a good question. And you're right. It was difficult to target my audience. I had a website. Instagram wasn't a big thing. Facebook didn't do a lot of advertising back, a decade ago. So I invested in some SEO. And before, when Google had Google My Business, they would boost you on SEO if you created content in Google My Business.
It was easier a decade ago on that. Yes.
Yeah, so I did a lot of Google My Business stuff to create, a higher ranking without having to pay. So I was uploading pictures and doing like special offers and little blog posts. And so real just sort of gritty marketing. Once social media took off, maybe 5 years ago or however many years it's been, I started investing in targeted ads. So then I was able to choose a demographic. So I would go for ages 21, of course, to usually 30, 35, living within about 15 miles of the school, interested in college, nightlife, alcohol, those sorts of things. And then I would do sponsored posts on both Instagram and Facebook. I have tried Yelp advertising. I wasn't super impressed with that. I think if you just have good Yelp reviews, it speaks for itself. People will find you. So I pretty much do sponsored social media posts. I just launched a campaign that I wish I would have launched sooner, which is I'm offering a price match guarantee because our classes are not full. We have room. So I figure as long as we have space,
Yeah.
some money is better than no money. And it's interesting because it's been running for a few months and only one person has requested a price match guarantee. And then they didn't end up signing up. I think they lived in Los Angeles. But nobody's really taking advantage of it, which I was shocked because you would think people would do research and try to find a better price. So the other thing I did is Groupon, which is a tricky one because Groupon, I hate Groupon. We all hate Groupon. Groupon sucks. It's good for the customer, but what I realized, and I was furious, this is probably 3 or 4 years into owning the school, I started running a Groupon. They will outrank you. They will pay for Google ads. So customers, leads, see your business first on Groupon. I was irate because, you get about 25% of your like retail price, if that. So, and Groupon tells you, right out, they say, this is not to generate revenue. This is to break even. And this is to market. So I said, screw Groupon. I'm going to leverage Groupon. So I'm no longer offering my full scale certification course because they're outranking me.
Right.
I'm going to offer a $30 intro class and I'm going to put it on Groupon to bring people in the door and then try to sell them once they're there. So it's not a huge loss. I mean, I'm breaking even with this intro class, but it was a way for me to leverage Groupon by offering something inexpensive where they're not going to rob me of all the profit and still get people through the door.
I love what you just said. So we're going to unpack some of that. And I've never been a big fan of Groupon because you end up with very little profit margin. But the fact that they're paying to outrank is amazing. And you know what, Laura? The minute you said it, I can see it's true, because then when you Google somebody like me, just Googling, you see the Groupon coupons before you see the company's information. And the minute you said that, I had a visual in my mind that every time you do it, you see that they offer a Groupon. And then I'm always hesitant when I see a Groupon because I always like, oh, so that's really key point. But one of the things that you said that I want to kind of go back and unpack is about the fact that your class was not completely filled. Therefore, if somebody does have a competitive price and you have to offer it at a lower amount, no money is better than, some money is better than no money. And that is so true. But I want to make sure I point out that that's in a business model where that class was going to be held, the costs were going to be incurred, and it didn't cost you any more money to have that other participant in the chair. So often people use that methodology of discounts when they're actually selling a product that they have to buy, and they think, well, I'm getting a penny for it, and go, no, you paid 2 pennies. That's at a loss. And they get confused. And so your example, what I love, is a beautiful example of where it does make sense to lower a price point because you've already got the program running. So I haven't had anybody on that sells a service in a specific situation like yours that's such a beautiful example on when discounts actually make sense. And I love what you brought up about Groupon, that is absolutely making sense as well. Now, I got to believe that there is a certain number that you have to have in every single time to pay for the rent, et cetera. And you have to, because you do have a brick and mortar and you have this consistent new classes, et cetera, you have to really manage financially to make sure you're meeting your numbers. And as you know from being a business advisor, Laura, so many times people just kind of do this and go down the road. So can you talk a little bit just about what you have to do to make sure you're always managing your internal cost and where your cost structure is and how many students you're getting in the door, and pumping some money into marketing and making the kind of choice you just said to do so people get a feel for the kind of activities that you have to do to stay on top of this?
So fortunately, our overhead is not very high, despite the fact that we have a brick and mortar. Of course, we have our lease, which we're still paying COVID deferral, which is not fun. Our landlord was completely inflexible, didn't give us any breaks on that. So we're paying a pretty high lease right now. But aside from the lease and labor, there's not a lot of overhead. So fortunately, I need about 8 students a month to cover that. So it's not a lot. And then any student after that is profit. So it works out really well. In the industry, I've noticed that there's not a consistent ebb and flow. Generally, summertimes the enrollments sort of peak, but that's not always true. That wasn't true last year for some reason. Coincidentally, last January was our best month ever on record. And I didn't do a lot of advertising. I think it was people coming out of the pandemic, wanting to be around people and thinking bartending would be cool, and just looking for work as everyone was kind of emerging from being in isolation for so long. So it's the income potential is high because we can hold about 30 students a month, and it only takes about 7 to cover overhead. So the more butts and seats, the more money we're making. Yeah. So, I do advise also for the SBDC. So I should invest more time into my business, but with how it stands right now, it is profitable, and it's doing great. And I haven't had to, burn the candle at both ends, so to speak, to keep it going, which has been a huge blessing.
Gotcha. I want to follow back on something with the 305 reviews on Google. Did you do anything to get people to want to review? I'm not saying pay them to review projects, but sometimes it really is hard to get somebody to actually take the time to do a Google review. How was that? Just organic? How did you get to that impressive number?
So it's Yelp. Google, you can pay for reviews. We don't, of course. Coincidentally, our competitor does. So we don't have as many Google reviews. I think we have 117. We have over 300 Yelp reviews showing. and then like almost 100 that are hidden. So we do offer a bonus point option if you want to review the school. We don't give any other parameters as far as what we want you to say, of course, or what type of review you need to leave or where you need to leave it. We just let you know that if you leave a review online for the school, you can get a bonus point on your test out if you're not feeling very confident about your test out. So
Okay.
that is a secret that has helped tremendously. I think it's Yelp is tricky. It's tricky for business owners. My sister owns a business and she's struggling because Yelp isn't showing any of the reviews because they have all these algorithms. So if somebody's not an active reviewer, it's not even going to show. If your IP address matches, somebody affiliated with the school, it's not going to show. And their algorithm is forever changing. So you don't know. Sometimes it's keywords. If they use certain words, it's not going to show. So that's been our most effective way to capture semi-organic Yelp reviews, is just to give our students an opportunity for a bonus point on their test out if they leave some feedback online for our school.
Perfect. It's a good strategy because they get something. It's the freedom to put whatever they do. But those, and you're right, it was Yelp I meant to say. Those reviews do help because people look at that. When you look at your competitors, do you have a lot of competitors, or is that, is the industry full of a lot of schools? I don't know what's the competitive landscape of your industry?
There's not too many. I actually plopped the school less than 10 miles from another school, sort of on purpose. I was just being a little bit rebellious, and I was researching them, and I'm like, they suck. I'm gonna blow their socks off. I'm gonna do a good job. I'm gonna put myself near them. And for the first 8 years, we were kind of at war with each other. They now have an owner who is amazing, and we respect each other and we both do our thing. But aside from that school, there aren't too many in Orange County. I think there's a total of 3. There are 2 in the Inland Empire. And then of course there's numerous in Los Angeles, but no, there's really not a ton of bartending schools out there with, brick and mortars. Of course, on Groupon, you can do like exclusively online training, which you can't learn to drive a car online. You can't learn to bartend online. You need to be there behind the bar. So yeah, we don't have a ton of competition, which is also nice.
How long does it take? I didn't even ask that. If I wanted to become a bartender, how long is your classes?
We do a full scale 40-hour sort of accelerated certification course. So there's a hands-on portion, which is at the school. We did a slight pivot during the pandemic because we have a book that covers different types of alcohol, where it comes from, how it's made, what it's commonly used in, price points, brands, customer service, how to upsell. So like how to do event bartending, how to do high volume bartending, how to do like dive bar bartending, sports bar. So in the book, our pivot was you're in person Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, it's on demand with the book, because the book used to just sort of lecture in class. And then I realized you guys can stay home in your pajamas. You don't need to spend the money on gas. Just watch the videos and follow along with the book. So they get, it was another benefit for us, because I'm able to save on labor on those days because we're no longer in person.
Now, do the bars come into your marketing strategy at all, where maybe they say, hey, if you went through this school, we really want to hire you because we know this school versus that school? Or is there a complete disconnect between you and the bars?
Not complete. We do staff a couple bars. They come to us when they have openings and they request that we send people to interview. We have had establishments, restaurants, and bars pay for their employees to come through our program, but we don't, aside from having relationships where we, continuously will provide people to interview, we don't have any other sort of relationships with bars. It's kind of it's a tough selling point for bar owners because they really have to know and trust us to know that we're doing a good job and it's worth the money.
Now, you mentioned that you are an advisor at the SBDC, which we're so lucky to have you. So tell us a little bit about how you became an advisor at the SBDC, so we know that story, because I have to ask, since you talked about Pat, I have to find out how you became an advisor. But then the real question too is, I feel like you maybe, as you became an advisor and started working with entrepreneurs, maybe it was a little bit of looking at yourself in the mirror, and seeing different things from when you started. So just also kind of give us an idea of what have you experienced when working with entrepreneurs that you look back and you said, wow, if I knew that then, and those kind of thoughts that go through your mind.
Sure. So I, while owning the school, it was also about year, let's see, like year 6 or 7 of owning the school. I actually got recruited by LAX. They were hiring for what was the title was bar champion of LAX, and they were going to have a culinary champion of LAX. So the bar champion and the culinary champion were set to oversee all operations in food and culinary. And I thought, oh my God, this is awesome. My dad's a jet pilot. I love the airport. Like, it's a little bit more nerdy and I'm into that. So I'm like, let me go take this job. There was some shifts at the airport and they said, actually, we need you to open up Rock and Riley's in Terminal 1, which is the Southwest Terminal. We need you to be the concept manager there first. And I try, like, that's not why I took the job. So I tried to politely let them know that I don't want to be just a bar manager. Like, I really wanted to be the beverage champion of LAX. So, bar management is tough because it's salary. They were squeezing me for like 70 hours a week. I remember during opening week, it was absolute hell. I had no time off. And I just kind of kept telling them, hey, like, I have a business. Like, I don't need this job, like, stop having me be here for 70 hours a week. So ultimately I quit because that's not what I signed up for. So fast forward to the pandemic, I saw Pat on the news talking about, COVID relief. And I messaged him. I'm like, you're on the news. Like, this is so cool. Like, I didn't know, like, I mean, I knew he had a cool job. I didn't know it was that cool. I'm like, you're on the news. And he's like, we actually need an advisor to help bars because bars are getting slammed by COVID. So if you're interested in coming on board and being a bar, hospitality advisor, so that's sort of the story of how I got onboarded with the SBDC back in 2020, I think, or maybe it was 2019.
Okay.
Mhm.
That's fascinating. I had no idea. And it's so true because at the SBDC, we really needed more people in the bar and hospitality because they did get hit hard. While we're on that topic, Laura, what do you see as far as is existing within that industry and the recovery from the pandemic and where you see it going forward? You've got some interesting insights into that industry.
I think it's come back with a vengeance. Of course, a lot of bars did lose a lot of people did lose their bar businesses during the pandemic. And I think it's unfortunate because our services weren't able to reach all of them. And that breaks my heart because if a lot of these bar owners would have known that they could have got the restaurant relief grants, the PPP, all these funding, opportunities that were out there, I think it could have saved a lot of the ones who had to close their doors. We worked with Alex's Bar in Long Beach. They got $750,000 from one program alone. So I think now that we're kind of, officially well, not officially, but more out of the pandemic, bars seem to be doing well. I mean, I like I said, I do live in Las Vegas, where we have a huge, scene for bars and nightlife, and it is going absolutely bananas. So I think people were ready to let their hair down, and that's kind of been charging, an increase in sales and traffic at bars as people were really ready to go have some fun and still are.
It reminds me some point in time that neither of us were around, but after the World War II, you see the videos of everybody partying and wanting to have, it reminds me of that, of everybody just wanting to get out and enjoy themselves. And everything in life has that ebb and flow. It sure does. So yeah, that is interesting, especially with the programs. And I got to do a quick shout out, Laura, to the audience and make mention that I've had several experiences with Laura. And when she talks about breaks her heart, she goes above and beyond to reach every last person that she can possibly reach that needs help. And she's just a fabulous asset at the SBDC. I've seen you on many calls where you have been just reaching out to everybody going, this person really needs help. What can we do? And I just want to make mention that goes very much noticed about your kind heart in that capacity. What have you really noticed as being an SBDC advisor as you are talking with people today? I mentioned to you, we were talking before the show, and those of you who joined us last week, we had a big conversation about the entrepreneurial mindset. And what I was trying to do is also approach the emotions that so many are going through right now, having to question whether they can continue with the company. You know, Laura, I just want to kind of leave it open-ended because I'm really trying to do a heart-felt reach out to the audience and let anybody else who has some words of wisdom or thoughts on how do you deal with the emotions today, Laura? Any comments on that?
I mean, I think be prepared. It is an emotional roller coaster, from the fluctuations in revenue to dealing with competitors to customers. Sometimes, you get reviews that aren't fair. Like, we got a girl showed up drunk to one of our intro classes and then was upset, but was visibly intoxicated and left us a bad review. So I think, dealing with that sort of stuff is going to happen. You really have to just focus on work-life balance. Actually, I think, because if you allow yourself to get so wrapped up, and entrepreneurs were notorious for not having off time. So especially in the early days, I felt like I couldn't stop. So I would come home from the school and I would be on my computer trying to figure out marketing. I would be taking calls. So of course, that's not good either, because if you're depleted, you're not going to be able to offer, what you need to offer to your business and to your family and to your friends, and to your pets. So I think really focusing on your work-life balance and trying to figure that piece out, because that's going to create longevity. You're not going to get burnt out. So while you're hustling your face off and you're sprouting these gray hairs, make sure that ideally you have a stable source of income while you're doing this. But as much as you can, make time for, being outdoors, make time for the gym, make time, to be with your friends and family. My sister, I mentioned, she just started, she's a florist. She just started a business in Thousand Oaks, and she's about a year in, and she's realizing, like, how do we juggle like time, like, when do we open? When do we close? When do we turn off? When do we, shut down? So it's a dance. I think that's the biggest thing coming into being a business owner, and for people who do own businesses, is just learning the dance. And I remember early in the early years of the school, I was going to Australia for a month. So I blocked out the schedule because we weren't that busy. So I just said full, full, full. The next week, I had an influx of people. So don't be afraid to unplug, because what that did, and I didn't even realize, is when I blocked out the entire schedule, people were like, I was thinking about signing up and then everything was full. And so I thought, oh my God, I better grab a spot for next month. So I got this huge rush of enrollments for people that were eyeing my business and considering it. So I know it's not the same for every business, but I would say don't be afraid to unplug when you need to. Don't give up, and you have to be flexible. If something's not working, you have to try something else.
Those were very great words of wisdom, Laura. And the other thing that I thought about when you were speaking of it is one of the things you mentioned early on, and I'm talking about money, paying bills right now, that you had jumped into this without having backup income, and it's not advisable. And that is so true. I always tell people, instead of this, the entrepreneurs get it in their head now, and they're being told by media, just passion and jump in, take the risk. And I say, no, make sure you have a backup, see if you can do it part-time, see if you can go in. And the other thing is, you started telling the stories. I took this job, it wasn't what I signed up, I left, and this that came here. I'm trying to get people to expand and open up to choices and say there's many ways to make money and bring income, and there's also things we do temporarily to cover bills to then get to here. And so, not get so caught up in saying this is what I do and this is all I can do. And you really demonstrated that in your story. So I wanted to bring that out. Now, Brissa, and I may have said your name wrong, Brissa in the audience, and it really parlays into what you already said, but she wrote this so well, this question. I really want to read it verbatim. She said, Laura, I'm working towards instilling confidence and belief in myself as I figure out what I want to embark on. Did you struggle with this? How did you overlook that and continue to move forward? Beautiful question, Brissa. Can you comment on that, Laura?
Yes, of course. And thank you for the question. So I was raised by a mom who taught me that I can do anything I put my mind to. So I'm going to pass that on to you. You can do anything you put your mind to. So because that was instilled in my mind that, you know, women can do things, women can be smart, they can be successful. You can go after your dreams, you can accomplish them. Try to just brainwash yourself. You absolutely can. It's possible. It happens all the time. I'm an example of that. So I think just remind yourself that you are capable, you are smart, it's going to work. Don't give up and be flexible.
Oh, beautiful. And I completely relate. I've always had to tell myself that as well. I've shared with many times on the show. I came from a podunk little country town. I didn't know how to speak properly. I didn't know how to do anything. And I had to keep saying, you can do it. You can do it. And, life is about it. It's about an adventure, and it's about taking on challenging, struggling, and failing sometimes. So I want to make sure we don't get booted off with some last comments. So I want to bring Lauren back. I want to say, Laura, thank you so much for coming on the show. And Lauren, also before you leave, if you get a chance, I know I'm kind of putting on the, if you can put the last show or the YouTube in, I want to tell Brissa about the last show, because that might be another aspect to listen to, because we talked about the entrepreneurial mindset on that. But we got to have Laura back on. This has been wonderful, Lauren.
I would love to.
It's been great. Thank you for sharing your insights, and quite a success. And one of the things I want to point out, you kept saying 7 years, 10 years. It's taking you a while to get there, and you have really succeeded well at that. And I want to say we're so happy to have you at the SBDC. So Lauren, I'm going to throw it back to you so you can actually close us down before I get cut off like last week. I learned my lesson. So I am going to say, before we get cut off, I'm going to hand it to you. Thank you for coming on Small Biz Talk with Lori Williams. Now I know I'm not going to get cut off. Go ahead. Close.
My pleasure.
Thank you, ladies. Laura, it's awesome learning more about you. She's, like Lori mentioned, she's an amazing colleague and just super helpful. She even helped my husband with his business and some other items. So she's awesome. She's
Thank
just
you.
as
My pleasure.
helpful and amazing as she is gorgeous. So
Oh, you guys.
thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Hey, beautiful on the inside and out, Laura. You've heard
For sure.
Okay. Now I'm going to get awkward. Thank you.
We're getting a lot of questions on the name of your school, Laura. How do they get in touch with you, and how do they get in touch with the school?
The Southern California Bartending School. You can Google us. We'll come up, SoCalBarSchool.com. That was another good move. It was, I just said, we are the Southern California Bartending School. So when you're thinking about names, that's another move, is if you can incorporate an entire region, grab it.
Yeah, that perfect. Okay, I am going to close this so we are officially closed and we don't get shut off. Thank you for everybody in the audience. Thank you for our frequent flyers for being here every week. If you just joined us, you can watch past episodes on YouTube. Join us next Wednesday. And with that, see you next week. And thank you again, Laura. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Please check the chat. I have the URL to Laura's school. It is https://SoCalBarSchool.com. Go ahead and click it so you can save it. And then if you'd like to get in contact with either Laura or Lori, please shoot me an email. You can reach me at lsimpson@lbcc.edu. That's lsimpson@lbcc.edu. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, and have an amazing day and remainder of your week. Bye.